One could hardly discuss American film without at least first mentioning the pinnacle of cinematic Americanness, the genre which we'll be discussing today, the Western genre. A romanticized depiction of westward expansion and the chaotic frontier of American manifest destiny, Western films often offer black and white depictions of morality and character at a time and place where there were few morals and most characters were bad guys.
Westerns depict good and evil, lawmen and outlaws, cowboys and Indians, wilderness and civilization, chaos and order, all wrapped in a shell casing, locked and loaded at gunslinger's hip in the town square at high noon. There are heroes and villains in constant conflict in the wild, wild west of the film world. One in a white cowboy hat, one in a black cowboy hat. Western movies are tales of justice being delivered in a lawless dog-eat-dog world, far from the law and order of American civil society. There's no politics, just two trigger-happy gunslingers with hands hovering over the 6 shooters on their hips. You could always tell which one you wanted to win, because you could always tell who was the good guy.
At least, that's the way it used to be. Western movies began as morally dual tales of good versus evil. Long after the genre had gone out of style, however, Western films became something else entirely in a movement known as the revisionist movement. Revisionist Westerns were less about gun duels of good versus evil and more about morally ambiguous gun duels. This came about as a result of the earlier spaghetti western genre. Spaghetti westerns were western movies made by Italian directors in Italy, like directors Sergio Leone. Often low budget, these films simultaneously paid homage to and parodied westerns, often with not-so-good guys taking up the protagonist's mantle.
From this revisionist western subgenre, we get our film, Unforgiven. Unlike traditional western films, Unforgiven presents a fairly complex portrait of violence, masculinity, morality, and the role of women, as opposed to the simplistic tropes associated with its predecessors. The hero of our film, Will Money, is first presented in the opening credits as a known thief and murderer, a man of notoriously vicious and intemperate disposition.
Will Money, according to this description, is as much a devious bastard as any old western villain. And yet, when we first see him, he's an old man trying to wrangle pigs with his children. We expect a bad guy, but instead get a pitiful old farmer running away from a brutal past. No matter what his actions in the film, we already know he's no hero, but he's far from a villain either.
We also find out that the reason for Money's apparent turning over a new leaf is on account of his deceased wife. We never see her in the film, and yet we already know she isn't like traditional Western movie women. In Westerns, women are often depicted as Madonnas or whores, either innocent damsels in distress or sexually deviant, whores. Money's wife is neither. She is a powerful woman, able to change a man almost 180 degrees from a fiend to a wholesome family man.
Even the literal whores in the movie, the prostitutes working at Greeley's bar, aren't just one-dimensional sex workers, but strong-willed women, seeking revenge on the men who attack and disfigure one of their own. They take matters into their own hands, not unlike a hyper-masculine cowboy might.
And that is another thing the film lacks. True depictions of masculinity. Will is a weak man, and when he first takes his gun out, he can't even hit a target from some 30 feet away. The Schofield kid lies about killing men to project false masculinity. And English Bob similarly warps the truth to protect his image. Skinny, the man who assaults Delilah, is a man with, quite literally, very little manhood.
And as for the morality of these characters, it's far from clear. Will Money enacts justice by killing Little Bill Daggett and the men who attacked Delilah, and yet he seems far from redeemed at the end of the film, as he begins to slip back into his old habit of drinking. Delilah, the victim of Skinny's vicious attacks, seems reticent about killing him and his partners and enacting cruel justice upon them. Little Bill, who ought to be the personification of law in Big Whiskey, is instead a cruel, violent, and murderous villain. Nobody seems to be on the same page about what justice really means, and we can only infer that in the Wild West it simply isn't there.
And while Unforgiven strays from the traditional archetypes and themes of old-school westerns, many of the classic motifs are still there. The setting, for example. The film takes place in 1881 in Big Whiskey, Wyoming, a frontier town with a big sky, open expanses of plains and rocky ridges, and plenty of gunslinging cowboys. With its saloon/brothel, town jail, dusty roads, and painted picket signs with town ordinances, Big Whiskey is as classic a western town as any.
And occupying that town are plenty of western characters. The town sheriff, the prostitutes and their cowboy clientele, the old gunslinger coming back for revenge. While it presents these archetypes in an untraditional way, they're all there.
Unlike its earlier American counterpart, the film noir, Western films are brighter, more optimistic tales of good individuals triumphing over evil. Western movies are an overly romanticized love letter to American history and classic American ideals, devoid of the pessimistic urban paranoia of film noirs. But much like the neo-counterparts to film noirs, revisionist westerns like Unforgiven flip the genre on its head while still paying homage to their predecessors.